overnight, where loyalty is rarely permanent, and where one wrong move can destroy everything you spent years building. But even in a universe filled with beef, betrayal, and brutal competition, nothing shook the culture the way the collision between Cameron and Jim Jones did. This story didn't begin with violence. It began with silence, with tension, with a slow-burning fuse no one realized was already lit. Before the total fallout, before the collapse of reputations, and before the internet exploded with memes, reactions, and countless theories, there was a moment in time when Jim Jones believed the world was finally recognizing his worth. Back then, Jim wasn't just another rapper trying to find his lane. He was Dipset's energy. He was Harlem's rough voice. He was the street general who could walk into any neighborhood without needing an entourage or bodyguards. And in those early days, even his harshest critics had to admit, Jim Jones had a presence few could rival. His hit We Fly High wasn't just a song, it was a cultural earthquake. The balanced ad-lib became a phenomenon. Kids screamed it in school hallways. Fans yelled it at concerts. Even athletes shouted it on the court. For the first time, Jim Jones felt unbeatable. But in the music industry, the moment you feel unbeatable, that's usually when the fall begins. The rise of a complex rivalry. When Jim Jones began rising, 50 Cent was an unstoppable force whose business moves were as sharp as his lyrical shots. 50 wasn't just a rapper, he was a strategist. When he picked a target, he didn't attack emotionally, he attacked system. Cameron, meanwhile, was Harlem royalty. Charismatic, quick-witted, stylish in ways only Harlem could produce. Dipset wasn't just his crew, it was his empire. And Jim Jones, Cameron's right-hand man, the one who would carry the Dipset flag into every war. But the dynamic wasn't as perfect as outsiders believed. Beneath the surface, things were shifting slowly, quietly, dangerously. Jim Jones wanted more control. He wanted credit he felt he never received. He wanted to be seen as more than the second guy in Dipset. At the same time, was observing everything from a distance. He knew power structures in hip-hop better than anyone. He could read tension the way a seasoned general reads the battlefield. And slowly, a thought formed in his mind. A thought that would eventually reshape everything. If you break the bond between Cameron and Jim Jones, you break two kings, one kingdom. Cameron had always been the brain of Dipset. Jim Jones was the muscle. But Jim felt the world didn't respect him enough, not in the industry, not in the media, not even within his own camp. He wanted to be more than a lieutenant, he wanted to be a king. This desire wasn't a secret. It was visible in every interview, every move, every public moment where Jim tried to assert dominance. And as Jim grew more confident, more cautious, success can either bring a team closer or tear it apart. For the latter, rumors began swirling. Jim wasn't showing up to certain meetings. Cameron wasn't approving certain creative decisions. Communications within Dipset became fractured, messy, scattered. The streets knew something was off. Bloggers started whispering. Fans began choosing sides. And in the midst of this slow collapse, 50 Cent saw an opportunity. He didn't have to attack immediately. He just had to wait. Because he knew, just like every empire that fell in history, Dipset was weakening from within. The friendliness that wasn't friendly before the chaos, before the harsh exchanges. Before where 50 Cent and Jim Jones looked unusual. People noticed them at events together. They exchanged compliments and even worked on music at one point. To fans, it seemed like a new friendship forming. But to those who understood 50's methods, something felt off. 50 Cent never befriended someone without a purpose. He didn't move emotionally. He moved strategically. And he knew one thing better than anyone. A man who feels underappreciated pull away. Jim Jones felt exactly that. He didn't feel appreciated by the industry. He didn't feel appreciated by the executives. And slowly, he didn't even feel appreciated by this emotional gap created the perfect opening. And 50 Cent stepped into it like a chess master ready to sacrifice a pawn to capture a king. A world watching the wrong things while Dipset fans were focused on music and public appearances. Something much darker was taking place behind the scenes. Conversations were happening, quiet ones. Deals were shifting. Labels were paying attention to new alliances forming. People around Cameron began telling him, Jim is getting too close to 50. Jim is trying to build his own power. He might leave Dip. People around Jim began telling him, Cam doesn't value you. You're carrying the team. You deserve your own empire. Whispers grew into suspicions. Suspicions grew into resentment. Resentment grew into a silent war. Neither man openly admitted it, but both felt betrayed, just in different ways. Meanwhile, 50 Cent watched with full satisfaction. The perfect storm brewing. Jim Jones still believed everything was under control. He still believed Dipset would survive anything. He still believed his rising popularity meant he was safe. He didn't realize he was walking into a trap. He didn't realize that the two strongest personalities in his life, Cam'ron and 50 Cent, were about to collide. He didn't realize that when giants clash, the ground shatters under the soldier's feet first. And he definitely didn't realize that the industry was already taking note of his shifting alliances. Producers became hesitant. Managers became confused. Labels didn't know who to trust. Because in hip-hop, confusion is the first sign of collapse. And slowly, very slowly, Jim Jones's career foundations began to weaken. The industry turns its head. Big names in the industry started whispering behind closed doors. Is Dipset breaking? Is Jim leaving? Is Cam losing his team? In the business world, uncertainty kills careers faster than scandals. No one invests in an artist who might switch sides. No one collaborates with a rapper who might be caught in a war. No one bets on someone whose leadership is unclear. Jim didn't realize it yet, but doors were quietly starting to close on him. Producers stopped calling as often. Promoters hesitated on booking. Collaborators pulled back. And Jim, without noticing, was slowly entering the danger zone. Not because he lacked talent, but because no one wants to stand next to someone walking into crossfire. The foreshadowing of disaster. As part 1 ends, the stage is set. Cam'ron and Jim Jones are growing apart. 50 Cent is inserting himself strategically. The industry is sensing chaos. Jim Jones is unaware he is becoming the centerpiece of someone else's plan. A collision of egos is coming. And when it hits, someone's career will be destroyed. Jim Jones is walking toward the edge of a cliff, and he doesn't even know it yet. Jim Jones had no idea how fast things were about to shift. He was still performing, still doing interviews, still screaming on stages across the country. He believed the height of his success was the beginning of a new era. With the moment, Harlem would crown him the next king. But behind the scenes, powerful forces were already moving against him. And the most dangerous part, Jim didn't see any of it coming. 50 Cent makes his move. 50 Cent has always played the rap game like a strategist, not an artist. Where most rappers act emotionally, 50 acts calculated. He examines every weakness, studies every tension, and waits for the perfect moment to strike. And in Jim Jones, he saw a golden opportunity, not because Jim was weak, but because Jim was vulnerable. Jim had ambition. Jim had pride. Jim had resentment toward the industry. And most importantly, Jim had issues with his own team. To a tactician like 50, that was the perfect formation. He didn't come at Jim aggressively. He didn't insult him. He didn't challenge him. Instead, he praised him. He called him underrated. He told interviewers Jim deserved more respect. He publicly supported Jim's music, and Jim, already feeling underappreciated, embraced it. That was the opening 50 needed. Because the best way to destroy a team is to convince one of them that they don't need the team. Meanwhile, Cam'ron starts sensing something is off. Cam'ron knew the industry better than almost anyone. He knew how labels